Welcome back to the Intellectual Podcast, where we talk a little bit about anything and everything. And as normal, I'll share a little story and get your opinions on it. So, have you ever just been in a lake or pond or an ocean, and then something just kind of scrapes the bottom of your foot a little bit and it feels really, really freaking weird? And you're like, that's a fish. And this fish not going to hurt you, but you don't want to be in the water anymore. Or that's some seaweed and you just don't want to be in there anymore. Has that ever happened?
Yes, and I want to die each time that it happens.
It's like the same feeling when you're washing dishes and you touch like the wet food.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing. Okay. So then this kind of builds into something, right? So let's put it on a bigger scale. You're in the ocean where a cruise ship that is 13 stories big looks like the equivalent to a Hot Wheel on the ground, but in the ocean. It's massive. So the question is, where's the growth limit? Could there be something out there that touches that cruise ship like it touches our foot in the water?
So it's definitely not touching the cruise ship, but I like the analogy. I will say it's dumb, but I like it. But there has to be because like out in the wild, there's like no growth limit. Like take sharks for example. Since we're talking about oceans, I know when you put them in a tank, they won't outgrow their tank. Then you put them in the ocean, they're growing like 10 times the size of that little tank that you have.
So yeah, goldfish are the same way. And something like yeah, so goldfish will not they will just grow to the limit of the tank. So that's
Yeah,
why you see them in
but goldfish are like 2 inches anyways.
okay, let's hypothetically say, that is actually quite massive. Um, but let's say you take a goldfish and you gave it the proper care forever and ever and ever, and you put it in an infinite big space. It has to get absolutely massive. Reptiles never stop growing. They only stop growing when they die. So we know the largest alligator or crocodile, whatever, has been 28 feet, right? Pretty massive. Okay. So if an apex predator has lived as long as it takes to get 28 feet, I think it's going to be wildly smart. It's going to know as soon as you jump in that water, like a megalodon, right? Let's just say megalodon. As soon as you touch that water, it's going to vibrations to smell everything about you that you're 2 miles away. So it's not going to show itself unless it wants you to see it.
So essentially, you're saying that they're like above an apex predator, like apex.
In the ocean, 1,000 bajillion percent. So 75% of the Earth, ocean. We can't see past our little feet in the water, like max 4 foot, 5 foot down.
I mean, it depends on where you go because, like, with us, like, I know when I used to live up in New Jersey, you go to the beaches over there, you can't even see like an inch into the water. But then if you go to like some like Caribbean island or something, you could see a lot farther down. It's a lot clearer.
Okay, let's just perfect conditions. You jump in the Bahamas. See all the way down. We'll give it 10 foot max. 10 foot, you can see clear to the bottom. Let's say you can see 50 foot out. Okay, we'll just say that's big as basketball court. How many basketball courts can you fit in the entire ocean? Infinite, pretty much. It's crazy. The math would be insane. So like there just has to be something out there that has evolved or have come to be that is just insane. Right? So we know pistol shrimp can break aquarium glass, right? They just punch it and break it.
Hmm.
It's crazy. Right? So we know that sharks have reached like 40 feet. That's what we know. We know there's crazy stuff out there that can live in like these super hot environments under these like little air vent things. Something has gotten freaking crazy. And you hear all these myth and legends, when the explorers were coming across to the Americas, and you hear the stories of mermaids and sirens and kraken and megalodon and all these other things. I'm not saying mermaids and sirens and all that's real, but there's probably a tiny bit of weight to some of these stories, maybe a little bit, right? Where they saw a shark and they over exaggerated it, but it could be a new species and it only comes out, the first contact with humans or whatever it was, that would have been what that was. or a kraken. It was the first contact. It was exploring. It's wondering what it is. But now it's like ungodly smart. Think about, we've talked about this. The intelligence of a human, but it all have just evolved to predator. So when we want to explore, use technology, create things, create businesses, interaction with people, it doesn't give a crap. Every bit of it's just predatory. Now put it in the water, camouflage, speed, agility, smell, everything is going to be insane. And stuff we've already know that have existed in the water, like a plesiosaur or a megalodon or any of that, it's pretty daggone close to that. But I think with the myths in the past, myths are created off of some bit of truth, right? So if everybody's talking about dragons, I do think that is based on some bit of truth, a little bit, maybe not a lot of it, but a little bit. Um, so next time you're in the water, and you feel a little fishy on your foot, maybe you'll think about the 20-foot alligator that shouldn't be there, or that thing we haven't discovered, because we've yet to discover absolutely everything. It's going to be impossible. We know less about the oceans than we do about space.
Right, and then two, we know that megalodons exist or
Existed.
they existed. Yeah. So, and those things stupid big, right? And so who's to say that there's not something a little bit bigger? Your apex predator, if you will, that just is able to hunt a megalodon, maybe not because of its size, but because of its brains. And it's able to use its surroundings or manipulate its surroundings in such a way that it can easily or more easily kill a megalodon because it has evolved not to just do technological advances, but through predatorial advances to where it's just literally evolved to be a hunter. It's like if when we were hunters and gatherers, if we solely focused on hunting, didn't give a crap about gathering or even going on to domesticate things and planting, solely just hunting. We focused 100% of our energy on hunting for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, I 100% think that when we go and we say the world's biggest whatever, it can even be on land, is 100 foot, 50 foot, whatever it is. That's not the biggest one. It's not. The biggest one's still down there somewhere, outsmarting us on the whole another level. So if it's another 5 foot, 20 foot, whatever it is, we haven't found the biggest one. And there's probably something that either is equal to it on the food chain, if not higher, that we haven't found.
Who's to say it's bigger though? Because it could just be probably the same size or a little bit smaller and it's just smarter and it knows how to like manipulate its environment, like I said earlier, and it's able to be smart and be intellectual and take out something that's twice its size, if three times its size or whatever.
Yeah, so basically, like it could rip its gills out, make it flip it on its back, do something wild that it would only know through evolution.
Right? Like I know like an orca whale, a killer whale, it will hunt great white sharks and it will tear out the shark's liver just for the crap of it. I don't know. I don't remember if it eats the liver itself or if it just tears it out and then eats the rest of the shark. But I know for a fact that it takes out the liver. It was on Shark Week.
That's crazy. The liver is where a lot of the nutrients is, so probably that's where it's like been home to do.
Mhm.
Now, this kind of gets into other things, okay, naturally. So we've talked about things that could exist that are pretty like easy to wrap your head around, big sharks and big whales and maybe something that looks like a shark or whale or an alligator, because all of that has existed and we can prove it. What do you think about almost like a humanoid alien mermaid thingy in water?
You lost me there.
Okay. Okay. Don't even worry about it. So, you know, we've brought up UFOs every once in a while, and in a future episode, we're definitely gonna go way more in depth with that. We've talked about aliens in a previous one, but we're definitely gonna dive more in depth. But just put it this way. Humans are on almost every continent except Antarctica, where we just have researchers supposedly, right? So they're on every single continent. There's not really a safe place to be or hide. You wanted to hide from people. The best place to hide is where 75% of the space is. That's in the water. You just go down really, 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 really deep. Like, I don't know if you, yeah, I don't know if you've seen the new Wakanda or the Black Panther movie. It's pretty much that, but they're not aliens. They're like an ancient Mayan people, but it's basically that. And they hide out from the surface people, and then they go up and they're like, "Oh, surface people," and they fight them and all that. But like, if aliens are on Earth, there's only two places they'll be, 100%. Ocean, Antarctica. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know about the Antarctica one because there's just not a lot going on down there. So I'm just a little skeptical about that one. The ocean one, I would say for sure though, because you have stuff like the Mariana Trench just going on forever and ever, just huge safe haven, if you will, since it's so deep. It's probably like 2 inches deep, but just definitely for sure something in the ocean. I don't, but what about like on land though? Because I know there's one, I don't remember the guy's name, but he was on the Joe Rogan podcast and he was talking about his trip that he took to in Africa and he went into the jungle at one point and there were basically like people running like little people
The
running
pygmy
around.
people.
Yeah. And he was saying like they saw him before he even knew that they were there. 'Cause they were either like in the trees or just hiding around, and then they were extremely fast as well. So could that be like a human version of an apex human, apex predator of a human in a like just slightly?
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's a good point because, people look at some of these tribal people that are like in Ethiopia or in parts of the Amazon, and they could run through a briar bush, a little spiky thing, and nothing happens to their skin. If I ran through that, I would like get pricked to death and get stuck in the middle of and be like, help, help, right? They, those people over there can climb a tree, go into like a bee's nest, get stung constantly, grab the honey and just munch on it because they're just built different.
There's also there's a tribe, I think it's somewhere around like the Philippines area, and it basically their entire thing is on the water.
Yeah,
Their
I
entire
remember
village is
that.
underwater, on the water, and then because of that, they do a lot of like fish hunting, if you will, diving down into the water and hunting the fish like with spears, and their lungs have evolved to where they can hold their breaths for a stupid amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, so to say that we know there's version of these people where in their Amazon they don't wear shoes, their feet become harder and their toes almost spread out like hands. So they're like the real Tarzan running up trees and stuff. But to say that there's not some form of animal that has reached that level, because like you would say humans are for the most part top of the food chain no matter where they are, even if they are in Africa. If they group together and they use their resources, they probably could take or they can take down lions. They can do these things. So if we're just talking about in the ocean, there's 100% stuff that can take down the biggest, baddest thing we know. 100%. Even like I don't want to use the default answer of like bacteria or leeches or something like that because that's like a dumb answer that no one cares about.
So basically, like something that has brains and is able to use the brains to be an intellectual.
Something that if it was in a zoo, you would get hyped to see it. pretty much. Like if someone told me like um the Black Death took down, millions of people, I'm like, yeah, but that's not like an apex predator. That's not cool. Not really interesting. But if you told me like a T-Rex took down a whole tribe of people out in wherever, that's pretty impressive. That's pretty cool. But I definitely think there is. There is a animal, we would call it an animal, a creature that has evolved in such a way that it has abilities and will and can take down the biggest, baddest things in the ocean that we know of. If it's a blue whale, if it's a killer, right now it's a killer whale, it's top of the food chain that we know. Um, if it's great white, I think great white automatically gets smoked because killer whales do kill them. Um, whatever it is, I wouldn't be surprised if it's rock boats before, and you could explain some of that. I'm gonna be honest. I think the only way we'll find out that this thing is what it is in times of war. I don't think a little scientist is going to go out on his little boat and be like, oh, let me find it. No, time of war, Navy versus Navy. We absolutely, or one side gets absolutely decimated, dead bodies everywhere, carnage everywhere. So there's the chaos aspect, which it wants to hide, right? And then you have blood in the water. This thing's hungry on the like levels we haven't seen before, like some Japanese versus US World War II type. And this thing, and we can't explain it, comes and starts eating or feeding.
Or could it be smart enough to know to not go because of all the surrounding stuff that has just passed? Or could it even just wait just until people clear? Like it knows that people have cleared now, and it's safe to go without them realizing it. And then we just come back and it's just nothing's there anymore.
I think to some degree that's what it would be if it was like a scientist or like a cargo ship or something like that. But I think in times of war or something of that level of chaos and craziness would probably even confuse something like that. And you got to think how long this creature would be around. We know like tortoises can live a long time. We know trees can live ungodly amount of time. So this thing could probably, and there's a type of shark. I think it's the Iceland shark, if I'm not mistaken. Or Greenland shark. It's one of those. I think it's Greenland. But it can live a few hundred years. Think about like how advanced something like this could really, really get. Yeah. Greenland shark, 392 years. That's insane. That's what we know of. How accurate that is. I don't know, but that's what we know. It could really get crazy. And I'll be honest with you. If I was in a little cage under the water and I was swimming with sharks in some crazy place, and this thing came up to me, whatever this thing is, we haven't discovered it yet. I don't know if I'd be excited to see it or I wouldn't be excited to see it.
If I'm sitting in a cage, I would not be excited. If I was out of the cage, I would still not be excited. The only way that I would be excited is if there's like 10 bulletproof pieces of glass that are just humongous, that is like between me and this thing to where it cannot get to me no matter what. Only way that I'll be excited. Or if I'm out, like I'm just in bed, getting ready to go to bed, and I got like a CNN or Fox notification being like, hey, this thing was found after it destroyed like five like cruise liners, I'd be excited. But if I'm just like, if I'm in the water with this thing, not excited whatsoever. I'm fearing for my life.
Understandable. So, question then goes. All right, so we talked a little bit about this crazy apex predator, right? Which I think most stories, if it's the Tasmanian devil, if it's Bigfoot, if it's dragons, if it's whatever, it all started from one little thing and it got blown out of proportion. And that's how it builds on culture, right? So if you don't go in the water because there's a crack, you don't go in the water because whatever is going to eat you. There's something to it, right? Do you think that this thing would act on vengeance or just full predatory instinct?
I think it would be more just pure predatory instinct because if it's trying not to get seen, acting on vengeance, it I don't it's like you ever try to fight someone when you're mad?
It doesn't
It
work.
doesn't work out. And I feel like that would be the same type of thing with that. Like they're coming after you because it's just like the vengeance aspect and I just don't think it's gonna work out. I think it would be more just predatorial instincts just kicking in and then doing it smartly the way that it has learned to do.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is because top three predators for me would be one of them is a tiger, 100%. So there's been cases where some dude will be walking through the woods of Russia and is pretty stupid and sees like a dead or like a tiger eating this animal and he's hungry, so he shoots the tiger. It doesn't kill him. Tiger runs off. He takes like let's say it's a deer the tiger was eating. He takes it back to his house and the tiger follows him the whole way home until he comes out the next day and the tiger will then attack the guy, kill him, whatever. But um I think like a tiger is a very intelligent animal, extraordinarily intelligent. It'll wait for you to turn around for the back of your to see the back of your head before it attacks. So it gets that a jump start. It'll attack the back of your neck like most cats will. Um, but I think in the ocean it's a whole different ball game that we don't understand. Absolutely. And I think there's even that's something I want to get into is things that are lost that were once discovered that are in the ocean today. Not only animals and creatures, maybe structures, buildings, people, whatever.
Like basically just like sunken ships, stuff like that.
Way cooler than sunken ships. Like the Titanic, like woohoo, we found the Titanic, right? Woohoo, we found the Mayflower. Like so much cooler. Like I don't think Atlantis is in the ocean, right? Atlantis is a real place, the Eye of Africa. Okay. Get in that to a later episode, which will be very cool. But I think more of um like if you were to sink Greece, if you were to have another civilization crash, where would they crash? Like from another world, it would be the ocean. It wouldn't be some land, it'd be the ocean. Um we we would never really find fossils in the ocean. I mean, we found some, but like we would never find a T-Rex in the ocean because it would be a pain in the butt to dig. We would never find the Hope Diamond in the ocean. Like the amount of stuff we could find in the ocean if we drained it, which would be very bad. But if we drained it, think about the everything that we could find because all those oceans weren't there at one time.
Yeah, if you drain the entire ocean somehow, then you would probably just immediately find 100 new species of any type of aquatic animal. It would be insane. And then you would you at that point you could possibly find the apex predator. But if you drain it, just you reveal the hidden secrets of the ocean. Like you can understand nearly everything.
All right, let's say you drain it. Somehow you drain the whole ocean. You have a week. You have a week to explore. That's like saying you have a week to explore the entire land of the earth times 23 on the size. Or no, times three. Times three on the size, right? So 75% lands 25% times three. Okay. Where would you go? Because like if you explore the whole continent of the US, right? The continental US, you would not be able to explore every inch in 1 week. Where would you go? What would you try to find?
We go Mariana Trench, baby. We trying to find just literally anything just because of how deep it is. It you're just gonna find easily probably about 200 new species just because it's so like you're revealing the hidden secrets of not only just the bottom of the ocean, but of the very, very bottom of the ocean. Because already the bottom of the ocean is very mysterious because It's completely dark. You can't see anything. No sunlight gets down there. Like anglerfish hunt because they have a little light dangling in front of them, and then you just go eat them as the fish comes up. That sounds like it wouldn't exist
Yeah.
at all, but yet it does. And so, what else is going on down there that we just don't know about, but it does exist? And then when you go even further deeper, like the Mariana Trench, it gets even stupider and crazier. And there's probably like, what was it, like the Meg, I think, where the megalodon comes out of the Mariana Trench. What if something stupid is going on like that? Like, I think the Mariana Trench would be a great spot for like a creature like that, like an apex predator to hide because it's so far down. We're not able to get down there.
Imagine just being the first guy to see an anglerfish, to be honest with you. Like, I'm just sitting here thinking about it. Like, imagine you just in there scuba diving and it's like pitch black. Only thing you got your little headlamp that goes like 2, 3 feet. And you turn around, you see a little light off in the distance. And you're like, oh, someone's down here with me. Awesome. And no, it's just a big bad fish. It's probably going to eat you.
Dude, I'd start freaking out thinking that it's like some ghost or something, just like trying to come eat me.
But, where I was thinking, where would I want to go explore? If I'm going on like pure wealth off of a week, I'm going to the Mediterranean, easy. You know, I'm gonna go shipwrecks, things like that. Try to make a quick buck, make a few awesome discoveries. If I'm going on sheer animal discovery, I think Mariana Trench is a good pick. But I think Bermuda Triangle is an interesting one there. Um, but the one kind of it's not part of the ocean, but one that I would be fascinated with if I somehow could melt the entire Antarctica and just go wild. I really do think there's something under the ice. There's something like in the ocean under the ice. There's swimming. It's either on the land. There's something that we have just not been paying attention to this whole continent. Either animal, life form, old, really, 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 really old humans or something. I mean, I don't know. I think there's something to be discovered there that we have not gone there.
Didn't Hitler and the Nazis go there for some missions?
Well, yes, the Nazis did Hitler, uh,
Well,
to be determined.
not saying like necessarily just Hitler, but the Nazis.
Yeah, yeah.
So the Nazis, as we know, like they were on like they were taking like crack or something because they were trying to like make their own UFOs and stuff, you know? So I'm wondering what they wanted to do with Antarctica. If they're trying to like make UFOs essentially, what are they trying to do down there? Because they're from our perspective, there's nothing there. It's just ice, and that's pretty much just it.
See, I think surface level is common sense, right? Surface level, there's a whole continent, no one's on it. Let's get the land, right? I think that's common sense. But like, then it begs the question: why hasn't literally any country since then, Russia, U.S., China, India, Brazil, have not gone there? We have supposedly put a flag on the moon where there's supposedly nothing. There's a whole continent within boating distance, and we haven't put a flag. We haven't conquered this junk. We just do a little research there. Like, it's hard for me to believe that there's not oil, there's not something there that would be worth time to really set up base, even though it's harsh. People live in Siberia all the time. People live in like these super cold, sucky places in Alaska and Canada and parts of Argentina, right? It gets really cold and sucky. But like, there has to be something there that's worthwhile if it's animal, if it's ancient people, if it's whatever.
Yeah, I feel like there is definitely something under the surface, but I think could it be that our good like the governments just don't even want to attempt just because of how much that it would cost to go and do an expedition of that magnitude to try and find something? Or could it be that, or have we already done something and we already know something's already there? and we just have no purpose for it.
I First off, I think the governments have plenty of money, plenty of resources, and there's some very ambitious people that just don't care, and they'll do whatever it takes. So let's just say Kim Jong Un, right? Let's just say he knows about Antarctica. No one's it's not up it's up for grabs pretty much. And he goes in there and he starts playing around. That's the type of guy who'll do that, right? Or like a Putin or a Xi Jinping of China, right? These guys, they don't care. Right? They're just go and take it because it's the land. But for the big players, right? The US, the Russians, and China's, you make a good point. They probably have already been there. They've probably already sent all their little guys, and they feel confident enough to say, yeah, there might be some stuff here, but it's not worth our time. Right. So, yeah, there might be oil, but think about the conditions and all. We're going to have to ship in $200 billion worth of supplies to get here or whatever. But then that begs the conspiracy side of things, right? The literal entire world, the whole thing has been on a consistent. We're not going here. It's either too harsh, not enough resources, or whatever. That would be the thing. Is there something yet to be discovered to the public? If it's animals, it's creatures, if it's otherworldly things, people, or is it just a sucky place?
I'm gonna bring this back to what we were talking about earlier. What if it's like that apex predator that, because like polar bears are white, they blend in easily. So what if it's something like that where it can easily blend in with the environment because it has evolved to do so, and then on top of that, it it has the intellectualness to be able to hunt smartly. And would possibly like some research groups have gone out there and either has been completely slaughtered, or it could just be like one or two persons, and the government, instead of just being like, oh yeah, that was this, or like something that we don't know, and cause like a huge chaos amongst the people, they're just like, well, they just died because of the harsh conditions, and we think it's unsafe to send people back because of those conditions. But the conditions is the apex predator.
See, then my brain starts going. I like the thought of there's something bigger and better than a polar bear, right? That seems plausible on land or even in the ocean. But if the thing's on land, just think about this. The U.S. is kind of weird. Russia's kind of weird. They send in a group of people. They try to capture this thing. They then take it and they go throw it on their enemy. That seems like something that one of these countries would do.
Well, what if it's like a Venom? Because I'm assuming most people have seen Venom by now. If you haven't, then skip over the next like few seconds if you don't want a part of it spoiled. But essentially, in Venom, the guy, like the parasite, attaches himself to him, and then at one point they start shooting at him, and Venom just tanks the shots and then just wipes them all out. So what if it's something like that where this apex predator, maybe it's not tanking all of the shots, but it's able to evade the shots to some degree, or is at least able to hide from the shots to where it's not getting hit, and then it can turn around and wipe all these guys out.
In other words, it's too smart to be captured.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and too powerful to even get killed and brought in.
Exactly.
Yeah. See that is plausible. And that I've always wondered, you know, there's people living in the most sucky places in the world. Like really. Like no water, extremely cold, there's literally no tree in sight. Like the suckiest places. People have lived for thousands of years. Yeah, thousands and thousands of years. Why? There's a whole continent. And I get it gets cold. It gets
Hmm.
extraordinarily cold. I get it. But like it still begs the question for me. why is an entire continent, let's just say it's the size of Brazil or India. I'm not sure how big it is, but let's just say it's that size. The entire continent. No one really like there's people that go there for like touristy stuff, but you never hear about explorers going there anymore.
Why I'm surprised that because I don't think any country has went there and then claimed it as their own, like or put a flag. Like we went to the moon, we put a flag on the moon, said the moon is ours, even though it's not. We got our flag up there. It's symbolic. That's all it is. But I'm surprised no one has ever done that with like Antarctica or something like that.
It, like okay, let's just go through the different people, okay? So, Genghis Khan probably couldn't have done it. All right, boats, probably not. Okay. Um, or Cyrus the Great, probably not. Xerxes, probably not. Alexander the Great, probably not. Okay, we skip along. Julius Caesar, you think he probably could have done it? Probably, yeah, probably not. We'll skip a little bit more. Napoleon. That's like, what is it? Like 1700s?
I think you don't really get to anyone being able to comfortably get to Antarctica and stay there for a manned mission for at least a week up until probably early
Okay.
1900s maybe. Maybe late 1800 if you, but that's pushing it.
Okay, but that still puts you in the realm of a lot of people who are very ambitious and want land. That still puts you in the land of Stalin, Hitler, Lenin, Gorbachev, Mao, and then all on the US side as well, right? The people who are money hungry, Rockefeller and Carnegie and Morgan and the Rothschilds and all those guys who just want pure money, and this is just a free money grab. So that 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 one still fascinates me, and I think the answer can be described as what we haven't found in the ocean yet. I think that can whatever we can't find in the ocean will be like an indicator of why we haven't gone.
Now, is that like an animal or some like archaeological site, if you will?
I think it's both. I think it's both. So, right, early sailors, they right, they wouldn't go to the US because it was flat, right? So there was other worries they had to worry about. They had to worry about supposed sirens and they had to worry about krakens and all that. I think there's probably a myth that I don't know about in Antarctica, right? There's this white beast that we call the Yeti that's in the ocean and it rips your boat in half, whatever it is. And then there's probably an archaeological site that maybe fell off the coast of like Argentina or fell off the coast of Australia. And there may be something down there that would answer a lot of our questions, or even sunken ships that have tried and they're Nazi ships and or whatever, and gives us a better indicator of what really is going on in this region of the world.
So basically, what you're saying is that then like a giant like animal, we'll just say a megalodon, right? Like just went up and then took a chunk out of a boat going to Antarctica. Or
I think a better one obviously would be like an iceberg, right? That'd be more obvious. Titanic number two. But in other words, I wouldn't be surprised. Like it would take a lot for it to surprise me. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a large predator there that we haven't discovered that has the ability to do something like that. But for us to find proof, I don't know. I don't know. But I think if we were to go to Antarctica, drain the ocean, and look, I think we would find boats that would have sunken, and we could either find something that this was their mission, this is what they saw, maybe in a journal or something, and it shows, okay, we saw this creature, we saw these people, we saw this. This is what happened. This is why we sank. I'm about to die. Oh no, right? I think that's more of the route. But in other words, I do think there's a creature there, either in the ocean. I don't know about land. I don't know about land, but probably. Um, just because how just it's like to me saying there's an apex predator in the Sahara Desert. There could be, but I don't really think there is. Um, but it's like, why do people not live in the Sahara Desert? I think the exploration could be insane. Like, if you want to find the next pyramids, it's in the Sahara Desert. That's fairly easy to get to. I mean, I'd say the Amazon, but fairly easy. I think it's worth our time to explore there. And I think if we drained the oceans, saw what was there, we could find what really happened to some of these people. And maybe that gives us an answer to why no one really goes back and does these things.
Yeah, I mean, I will be honest. I don't like with Antarctica. To me, it just seems like it's just a big old piece of ice. Not much to it, just because of the extreme harsh conditions of it. It is like one of the worst, like most extreme deserts because it doesn't get any like rain or snow or anything like that. So I don't, if there was something going on around it, it would definitely be in the water from an apex predator. But I can't see like anything going on like with the land. It would have to be some sort of predator who probably can tell that there's a research group going on and it's just that's when it decides to strike or something of the sort to where it just doesn't strike the normal people just going for entertainment or whatever.
It's something that I don't think we're putting any weight towards. There's people that live in parts of Alaska, Canada, Siberia, where it gets daggone cold, and they live almost in, I wouldn't say like a tribal sense, but like a tribal sense.
Right, but then at least with them they have different animals that they can hunt and kill. There's not really anything in Antarctica.
Well, you could go polar bears, you could fish, you can go seals, elephant seals, leopard seals. If you're really wild, go to killer whale. I mean, I I think people will always find a way. Like if I took 100 people and I stranded them on Antarctica and they had like the bare minimums, I do think they could live. I really do.
Define your bare minimum of what they have.
We're gonna throw them back into the 1800s. 1800s. They have plenty of clothing. They have an ability to start a fire. They have an ability to clean water. That's it. An ability to hunt some form of animal.
Do they have spears and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay. But then the fire brings up the question, it's ice. So could the fire just start melting
You
and
know,
stuff?
that's an interesting point. And because in a lot of those places up north, they have wood and things like that. And every picture I've seen of Antarctica doesn't have trees. So that's an interesting point. I don't know about that, but maybe they use like a weird form of oil to they find in the ground to ignite a fire. I don't know. Maybe make an internal fire somewhere. But I wouldn't be surprised. A long, long, long time ago, like the Vikings, they went from the Nordic countries to Iceland, to Greenland, to Canada, and supposedly they were one of the first um, Western people to come to the Americas. What about if they just went the opposite way? Not the Vikings, but like someone went from like South Africa, or maybe they went from India to Australia down to Antarctica. Like just like one group. And I'm not saying they built like Cairo or they built Babylon. I'm just saying they had a little settlement and it's yet to be discovered. And either they died out or the reason they died out is because people don't go there anymore. If it's the weather, the harsh conditions, if it's a predator, if it's another tribe, whatever it is, I think that's the reason why an entire world of people that are greedy and hungry for stuff don't go there anymore.
Could it also be that they say they did put up that, right? Put up their own settlement there. Could it be like with global warming or just anything of the sort? Part of it, part of Antarctica breaks off, and now their settlement has completely collapsed into the ocean to where it's in ruins at the bottom of the ocean, sitting right next to Antarctica or from where it was.
And this is why, if we drain the oceans, we would have an answer of some sort of what was happening, what is happening, what did happen on the whole continent.
I will say, even though I am pretty skeptical about something going on in Antarctica because I feel like it's just a giant ice thing, I will say I wouldn't be surprised if there were multiple like manned missions to go settle Antarctica or at least attempt to that have died out in their own way, no matter what it was from the conditions or some predator. But I will say, I would not be surprised if a lot of people have tried.
All right. Next few sentences, I'm going to try to convince you that there was something in Antarctica going on. All right. So, would you agree that Antarctica was not always a giant ice sheet? At some point, and we're talking thousands, millions, hundreds of million years ago, it was not always an ice sheet.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. So, the Sahara Desert, it wasn't always a desert, right?
Isn't it on like a 5,000 year cycle or something like that?
Yeah, pretty much. At one time, it was a rainforest. So, if we assume that people were around, let's say 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, and they lived in the Sahara Desert, you would have archaeological discoveries like 30 feet under sand, like as big as the US, just under sand somewhere. Well, what's to say if we both believe that there was a global civilization that went across every single continent, and this could have been a cycle, right? So like a million years ago, a civilization rises and it falls, and then another one rises and falls, and another one rises and falls, and this happens so much that we don't have we they've all the other ones have withered away, or we're seeing remnants of multiple civilizations, not just one or two, maybe not five or six, but multiple. And one of these rises and falls, and we talked about it earlier, in another podcast, but one of these rises and falls happened to be at the time of Antarctica when it wasn't necessarily a giant ice sheet. This is just a theory. I'm not saying I wholeheartedly believe it, but I think that could be an explanation of, okay, something, we're rolling out an entire continent of the world. There's this ice sheet. It's basically the Sahara Desert, but it's cold. And yeah, maybe not now. There's something going on. Like if you want to put a military base, put it in Antarctica, honestly. But, and I think the reason why it fell, or the reason why something were to happen, or the people don't go there anymore, that's the explanation why we don't go there. Harsh conditions. I think that's valid. That's super valid. Predators like polar bears or anything else we don't know about. Lack of rain, snow, anything. Food, anything like that. I think that, but I do think that it's a strong possibility that civilization could rise and fall through millions of years that predates humans way further than we ever thought, like crazy, if that's true. But I think it's a strong possibility that a civilization that is we would call civilization fairly impressive could have ended up there, and it could have just withered away. Could be in the ocean, could be frozen in time.
I would definitely agree that there is probably at least one civilization that was successful for about a month. I don't know if it goes on any longer than that or if most of them died out before or died out even after that. There's at least one that I would say got to a month.
So when the first pilgrims came over here, right, or the Westerners, or excluding the Vikings, what, yeah, when the Western people came over to America, so that would have been. We're not talking about China people. We're talking about like Spain and Portugal people.
Yeah, literally.
Okay.
North,
But you know what I'm
east.
talking. You know what I'm talking. I know what you're talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. When they came over here, they made a little settlement. First settlement, they came to the US. So I forgot the name of it, but let's just say there's like 100 people. It's still the same story. So anyway, they set up shop, and there was Native Americans in the area, but they didn't really know. They were just setting up shop. Anyway, the guys went back to go explain to the royalty, what we found, and they're going to come back like 3 months later. That got delayed. They came back and they found some tree carvings that you can still see today. And like everybody went missing. They didn't find bodies or nothing or an attack. They just went missing. So, with that saying, the first settlement in the US, or one of the first, didn't work. There's already people living here. So, you just kind of answered both your questions. Yes, there could have been a settlement in Antarctica that lasted a month, 2 months, 3 months. Also, that external threat of whatever killed them, wiped them out, or did anything, it's disease, predators, people, harsh conditions, whatever it is, it's the same concept of that town that was one of the first in the US. And I think that's a very similar thing. And I'm all about it. Like if they just died all of frostbite and they all died of no food, like fair. Fair. That's what happened. But I do think there's much more to Antarctica that we give credit to it. Same thing with the Sahara Desert. There's so much more.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that, there was a settlement, but I think it would die out more of from just the conditions, not being able to grow any food. Because if you're gonna go there, then your diet is going to be 100% based off of hunting. And what happens when those animals realize that there is, like a settlement there, maybe they switch up wherever they start going to more. Like maybe instead of coming to that beach, quote unquote beach, there, they go to a separate one. And then the people there don't realize it. All they realize is that just all these animals just aren't showing up. So what do we do?
It
Or
becomes
maybe they even hunt out, they kill out like almost an entire species to where they're not able to sustain all the people that they were able to,
yeah, it becomes a nomadic tribe in Antarctica, basically.
essentially. And I think if you start being nomadic in Antarctica,
You're gonna die.
yeah, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, you're dead. You're gone. Yeah, I mean that's a fair point, and that's why I was thinking. Um, the only way you're going to last in Antarctica is you can grow food, right? That or you bring your own food that we can out like in little baggies and stuff. But even then, you couldn't last forever. So that you would have to go back to a time where there's no ice. There was a time where it was like that. Um, and then that's the whole theory of human civilization has risen and fallen. And that goes back millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of years ago. And if you could prove that, that predate um, human history a long, 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 long time ago.
Yeah, so I just looked up if Antarctica was a rainforest, and it says roughly 90 million years ago, it was as warm as Italy.
It could sustain life, like legit life, not like some polar bear life.
At that point, it would have been able to sustain literally any life.
Yeah.
If it's Italy weather, then it's able to sustain any life. But I don't think humans predate or go back 90 million years ago.
Okay. So let's play the game. Play the game. I would agree to you to some degree. So, I'm assuming you're probably pulling up how long the humans predate. But so if evolution, we'll say is 100% real. All right, let's play the game. The first humanoid thing popped up at whatever time. All right, 100,000 years, 200,000 years, whatever it is, and then we get to more civilized people down the road. And what did we kind of come up with? It was like 10,000, 20,000. Civilization really started 20,000 years.
Somewhere around 11,600 BC after the Younger Dryas.
Okay, so some real civilization. So about 11,000 years ago. I'll slap on another fifth or four just for nice easy numbers. So 15,000 years ago. Okay. Yeah. So 15,000 versus 9 million. That is a drastic difference.
90.
Oh, 90
Yeah.
million. Yeah, that's drastic.
And just for a comparison, the dinosaurs died off about 65 million years ago, which means the dinosaurs would have been living when Antarctica was Italy weather. and now it has, and they would have lived as it changed from that, and then they died off after.
Okay, so which is that's super interesting. So what I'm about to say, I don't necessarily believe, but I just want to hear your thoughts on it. So Antarctica was popping off 90 million years ago. It was great. And so first off, we don't have written documentation that goes back like 50,000 years ago. So like we don't really know scientifically what happens at 100,000 to it's all like carbon dating and stuff. So 100%, but maybe there's a not incredibly accurate as 90 million. It might be 85 million, 70 million, 60 million, right? So whatever, right? Okay. So could there have been just like alligators and sharks and things like that that have lived through the dinosaur period in Antarctica that is still around today?
Like a species, essentially.
A large predator species.
Yeah, I would not doubt it whatsoever. Now, the region that they're at, like specifically Antarctica, that's what I would question, but I would not question that there is something of the sort going on somewhere.
Okay. Another question. So we talked about, human civilization falling off in the Younger Dryas, coming back and becoming what it is today. So we've talked about it kind of being like a global civilization. Do you think that the Younger Dryas happened once, could have happened multiple times, and we're just fortunate enough to be in the latest version?
I think it's the latter. We're just fortunate enough to be in the latest version. I think it happens a lot more than we would like to think.
So do you think it's happened one time, two times, three times? What's your number?
Okay, so Earth has been around for millions and millions and millions and millions of years. That puts us probably around, at the very least, I'd say 20 different cataclysmic events, and we just don't know of any other ones because we're just unable to tell.
Yeah. So if the majority of uncivilized people that let's just hype that I don't necessarily believe this, but I'm just trying to poke a hole and see what you think about this. Um, if people dated back something crazy, 100 million years ago, something wild, right? It dated back and they're like all little cave people, so we wouldn't know much about them. And then they come along, they get exploded by an asteroid, and then this keeps happening about every 5,000 years. So every little city that we think like they would show up, it gets exploded. Weather, everything erodes, Earth takes back over. And you have just a tiny little population of human-like things that are coming to be, right? So, and then eventually this happens like every 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 years, whatever it is, and no one can get on their feet until up until really the past 15,000 years. Would you hold any weight to that?
I I wouldn't doubt it. I would, I'd say probably about 25%, and I feel like that's being generous
Mm-hmm.
because if that was true, then I think we would be finding more human or human sort of the type skeleton remains, bone remains amongst the same level that we find dinosaur bones at.
Yeah, that's a that yeah, but also how dinosaurs fossilize. So dinosaurs fossilize. Let's say they go into like they die and they fall in mud, or they die and they go in like a tar pit. They get coated, and like the skeleton remains get this like preserved, and then the minerals in the skeleton get like switched. Well, if let's say humans are smart, and either they just die and they leave them there. If they just leave them there, it's not going to fossilize. If they kill or like they die and they go throw them in mud or bury them in mud, then it'll fossilize. And I agree. We probably, if that's the case, we probably should find them more than what we do.
I would, like, we're not gonna find them on a mass scale I think we'd just be finding them just like one out of every like 1,000 that we look at. Some stupid low number like 0.01%.
Right. I completely agree. But do you think if we found something, right? We found this skeleton that's a humanoid thingy that dates back some ungodly about 50 million years ago. Crazy. Like no one would believe it. Do you think if we carbon dated it and it said 50 million, do you think they would come out and say this humanoid thing is 50 million years old? It just completely changes history if it would be real.
They absolutely would not do that. Like we talked about this a little bit in our ancient apocalypse or whatever it's called, like ancient civilization thing that we did.
Lost. Lost civilization, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, something of the sort. And I mentioned a point in that about ancient apocalypse. Uh, Graham Hancock, it's on Netflix, and that they found what a Neanderthal tooth in a lower level, like of the earth, than what they should have, which would mean that there were humanoids, creature things at an earlier time than we think. But no one wants to believe it. They carbon dated it to, I think they did. I think they did.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But either way, it would still put them back earlier than what we have. And a lot of modern archaeologists were basically just taking it to the curb, just saying, no, that's not that didn't happen. That's not real. That tooth that you're holding in your hand, that's not a tooth. That's just white dirt. Something stupid like that. Where they Because like I said in the other episode, they feel like it's more like just personally attacking them than anything else.
Yeah. And I think you could find the proof. A lot of the stuff we talk about, you could find the proof, you could find the evidence. This is everything. You could lay it out, perfect textbook proof. Um, but as a structure, archaeology, schooling, everything is not going to be like, yep, that's legit. People's life's work, millions of dollars would just go to the wayside. But I do think that's an interesting theory to bring up, where human civilizations, human-like civilizations of some sort, even if it's hunters and gatherers, have risen and fallen, say every 5, 10,000 years, and they've never been able to get their footing. And just recently, past 15,000, we'll just say 30,000, whatever it is, because you to create Göbekli Tepe, you have to be semi-advanced. So
Not even in semi-advanced. You have to be very advanced to create some of those structures around them because that was also intentionally buried.
right.
So
So
you have to be dummy smart to know how to do that.
right. So like you would have to predate that. Even if we say 50,000 years, we're gonna have to predate that like another 10 just for that to be able with the interesting or the ability to do that. So let's just say it goes back. I don't know, like if we took a person and we just made them like as stupid as possible and we throw them all somewhere and we can track them. Okay, in 100 years, these ancestors will be able to do this. These ancestors will be able to do this. Be able to track it like, okay, they're going to start with fire because they saw it with lightning, right? They'll be able to control fire. And after that, they'll be able to do this. Like, I don't know how long it takes before people start planting food and they start doing all these things, but at some point, they're going to get killed off. Like a lot of them are going to get killed off. That's going to wipe most of them out. Then they're going to start breeding like rats because they realize the more people they have, the more workers they have, and then they're going to die a lot less. And this is going to just keep going. Okay. And then at some point, some dude's going to have a little bit of time on his hands. He's going to be in a house instead of a cave. And this is just going to keep scaling. I don't know, like, how fast that process really is and how long something like that takes. I'm just assuming from the point where we can say that looks like a human. From that point, I don't know when that starts. I think it predates, a few hundred, 200,000 years. I definitely think that it goes back a long, 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 long time. Um, but basically, to sum everything up, if we were able to drain the ocean, I think a lot of things would be answered. A lot of misunderstandings, a lot of things we wonder about is going to be in the ocean. Um, I think Antarctica, it's very interesting that we kind of just completely ignore it as a world. And I think the ability to have a civilization that could have been there or even in the ocean now, ancient civilization, could be a even a strong possibility. And yeah, what's your thoughts if you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, so I feel like we covered this topic good, but also crappy because we took tangents to another level. Because we started out talking about the apex predators, and then we started talking about Antarctica, and then Göbekli Tepe. None of those things line up. You could be able to draw a line between Antarctica and the apex predators like we did, but all in all, I have no idea what that was. But that was our intellectual thoughts on whatever that was. And if you guys made it this far, you're a gorgeous person. If you hit that like and subscribe, you'd also be beautiful and stunning. So you'd be all of the above: stunning, gorgeous, beautiful. And I'm sure you guys want to be stunning, gorgeous, and beautiful. So go ahead, you know, hit that like and subscribe. And as always, let us know your thoughts on the on our podcast, on ways to make it better, improve quality, or go more in depth into our tangents. Maybe do more tangents and keep it base level tangents and go into more depth in separate episodes. Whatever you guys want, let us know. We love talking about all this stupid crap that we do. So, whatever you guys want better or more of, let us know. And if you have any different topics that you want us to cover or go into more depth, drop it in the comments or go to the Instagram. It does not matter. We'll do our best to go through all of them and making new episodes based off of whatever you guys say. And with that said, have a beautiful rest of your day, morning, night, evening, whatever time you're viewing this at. Thank you very much.